That's right. So, sorry, bear with me. I just wanted to test the camera there.
It didn't work as well as normal, did it?
No, not really, no. But, what's wrong? Oh, sorry, hang on. Evening all. I have to begin that way, don't I? It's almost become a bit of a cliche or a regular habit or something. Anyway, you can lie if you like, Danny. How are you this evening?
Absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
No, I'm okay, thanks, mate. Yeah, rubbish FPL. Couple of weeks, horrendous. Is what it is. We'll talk about it. We move on. We move. We try.
Yeah. Time is a great healer, and we don't get much of it, do we? Really, I suppose. And I've got a bit of a stinker of a cold that's sort of been lingering, so we'll try and be fairly efficient. I know we always say that, but we'll try and be fairly efficient. I've got my warm drinks, no beer this evening, which will tell you everything about how it's going. But yeah, that's how we're going to do things this evening. But yeah, big week. I mean, we couldn't leave you to it because, of course, doubles, all that excitement, all sorts of things. So yeah, we'll be definitely heading straight into that in a minute. Just a quick hello to the chat. Now, I did mention that you were, just joining us after your pre-match walk as normal, and I said, well, you were probably sort of stomping around, getting in the mood, sort of a bit of Beethoven, to psych yourself up. And there's rumours about what you and Gareth Pashy has been here for a little while. Danny looks like more of an Andre Rieu kind of guy. Now, I don't know if Danny knows who that is, but I would be quite offended by that. That's kind of music for old ladies who like waltzes and stuff. So I'm not sure about that. But
it's
a bit harsh.
Cheers, Gareth. Yeah, it's fantastic. I hadn't heard of him actually, but I've just looked it up and now,
No, it's not good. Although I should say, a regular thing. This is our culture corner as usual. He usually does a summer gig every year. I think in Maastricht in the Netherlands. Well worth a visit, by the way. It's a lovely city. It's a very livable place. A few others. Nikolai sees me as more of Rachmaninoff, Richie. Well, yeah, I could go down with that. That sounds fair. Harry is in the chat here as well. He's threatening to put food in before he starts. So I don't know whether he's changed his jacket potato topping this week, but we'll see. Lots of tips on that last week. So thank you very much, Harry. Nice to see you again. Trying to think whether he had a good fortune after being with us last week, but I know he's still mulling over a transfer, which he wants to ask us about, actually. So I'll drop that in at some point. It does involve our friend Brian. Jossie here as well, and a good friend Alex. He's joining an early meet before he goes to an early meeting in New Zealand. I would bin off the meeting, Alex. You've got more important things to do. Stay with us. That would be my advice. Let's have a quick look at where we stand here. So game week 25, double trouble. If you've been under a rock or in a cave, or perhaps just on a long holiday of total silence, then you would have missed that it is a double game week coming up. Not this week, but next week. So we'll talk that through. And one of the references there, of course, is we've got an Arsenal reference on the slide. But let's go straight to talking through our mini league. Cameras all over the place, by the way. So if you are,
it's really zoomed in now, isn't it?
I know. I don't understand why. I'm going to have to sort of just go back with the microphone at some point. But it's not.
Try again. Try the zoom thing again. See if it works.
What? Go backwards?
Yeah. I don't think you've gone far enough back. Here we go.
I'm now too far from the microphone.
That'll do.
Okay. Well, anyway, just listen to watch Danny, listen to me, or something like that. So things are neck and neck as usual at the top of the mini league for the FPL Last Resort mini league. Benji Yag is still just about heading up, but a return to form for number 4, Zach Farnell. He's back there. I think he's got a couple of sort of 70s, 80s, 90s in a row. I'm not quite sure how he's done it. Although he hasn't hit the heights of Atticus Finch there, Ekatiki Taka, with 107 on bench boost. So well done to you. You should probably just take over from us. I don't think either of us have ever done that well on a bench boost. I did have a look at it. I think I'm trying to remember what it was. It's somewhere between 15, 20 on the bench, and then the rest of it was in the starting lineup. So very, very well done indeed. And yeah, a few regulars in the top 5. Joseph Robinson is starting to become a regular contender there as well. So if you're interested, do look at that, and that's more for those watching. But yeah, very good, well done. Danny and I are not threatening the top of the leaderboard. I think it's fair to say we're sort of at the end of the first page. I think usually, if we're lucky, maybe the beginning of the second. Good. Okay. Well, lots of good questions submitted this week. Oh, idiot. Let's do our teams first very quickly. And we're good very, very quickly because, well, I'll hand over to you, Dan. If you can talk through as much or as little as you like here. This is last week. I didn't realize I'd actually put them on there.
Yeah. Oh, God. Obviously, I don't really want to talk about it. I mean, I got a 28 last week and then followed it up with another pretty rubbish week. What is there to say, really? Saka injured, so yeah. I mean, I got nothing. I mean, Gabriel, the only thing that's gone well for me about the last 6 weeks was, I mean, so far, although I'm still not wild about it, is actually just that Timber to Gabriel move that was, didn't look ideal, but I mean, it's still probably about, I think, 6 to 8 points up on it from
for
like
sure. Yeah,
2 or 3 weeks or something already. Again, just from doing nothing. But no, I mean, there's nothing really to say. Captain Fernandez was fine. That was never in question. With a lot of these players, but I think we're just going to have to talk about in the pod in terms of frustrations and people like Bumo and Ndiaye. I mean, yeah. Is there a question on Ndiaye and stuff like that? Should we just wait till we get into it?
Yeah, there is actually, but I know what you mean. Actually, for those of you who are listening and not watching, I mean, I'll just pick out a couple of names here. But players like Thiago and Ndiaye, Lacroix, I guess as well, maybe Tarkovsky, they all fit into this category of they're really good, solid long-term holds, aren't they? Generally, good picks. But for whatever reason, lately they've just, players like Ndiaye, I won't talk about it at length, but they're just having the odd week or two where could have easily have gone a different direction, but unfortunately, it's just been a bit slow, isn't it? So very tricky, but we'll talk through those picks a bit more. But as you say, Saka being the main point of frustration. I'm just going to take issue with this straight away. I know people have said it. This view out there at the moment that Saka owners are lucky, or they've had a fortunate escape, they've got reason to change tack and get someone cheaper in who's matching him and whatever. I think that's absolute horseshit. So if you think that's sling your hook, I would say no. But for us, particularly, we'll get into it more in a minute. But that was such an opportunity there. So personally, I'm really frustrated by that. But
there's a lot of hindsight about Saka, isn't there? Where it's kind of understandable. People sort of feel more able to say something like that because it's been, say, even if you want to say like 10 weeks of it not being very good. But I mean, again, that hindsight still doesn't really work because anyone who got on Saka, like us, for example, it was weeks ago or whatever it was like 10 weeks ago or something, wasn't it? Something like that. Way before Christmas, when he did look like a very good pick, when anyone who didn't own him would have wanted him, ideally. But, fair enough, like decided to sort of spread the cash elsewhere or whatever. And so, yeah, once you sort of get on someone like that, I mean, he's never looked bad. He has had a lot of sort of near misses. Obviously, in hindsight, he isn't the best pick to own. It's not really worth the money, but it never really looked like that. So when you get him in 10 weeks ago, there was never really, it wasn't the time to sell him. So it's very difficult. Saka just turned out to be kind of, in hindsight, a very unfortunate bit of a trap, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think the other thing, by the way, that people probably don't put together too carefully at this juncture because it's in the past now, is that the impact of careful planning to get Saka into your squad and to maintain it means sacrifices elsewhere that now are a bit more problematic, right? So someone like a Deveni and a Gui in your squad, like it was worth that sacrifice at the time to be able to squeeze in the real big hitters. And of course now it's tricky, isn't it? Because no one's got so many I don't see anyone out there at the moment with 4 or 5 transfers who can rearrange things that easily. So it's that
and
as
again,
well.
Like, the knock-on effects I don't even want to think about. I mean, it's kind of horrible, but for me, for example, like I was in a very strong position. Say, for example, when I brought Saka in, again, it was a while ago, but in a strong position. And as you say, like, I mean, it wasn't even Deveni at the time; it was actually KDH for me. So that was like
yeah.
a facilitator who. So it was like all those moves around the time to get in a really solid team. You know, it was like when we had 5 transfers, and then that took me down to 2 or 3. But you know, I had a really solid team on paper, and had a 15, a full 15, because it was KDH there and Saka. But then KDH got injured that week as well, straight away, and there wasn't really another kind of facilitator around that price, which is, you know, fair enough. There's risk there, but yeah, like as you say, like having that price there with Saka, again, the price and the sacrifice that meant going into it has just meant so many other transfers have actually made down the line, and so many other moves, and it's just been a nightmare. I mean, honestly, think if I mean, it's a ridiculous thing to say because what happened. But if I hadn't had Saka, made that big, you know, if I had anyone else, if I had Rice, for example, I honestly think that I would have had like 2, 3, 4 transfers in a lot of the last few weeks. So my entire team and season would be different. But it kind of it kind of meant that weaker squad and all those transfers gone, and then there's been a transfer I had to use every week. I mean, that's the other thing with my team now at the moment is, so it is and was risky having, say, Devaney in there. I mean, to be fair, Devaney was playing for a while, and you know, that was sort of a little bit of a short term to facilitate stuff. And I've had 5 very strong defenders on paper. I've always had a very strong first bench. So there's still risk there because there wasn't really enough. There isn't really enough on my bench, which obviously I'm hoping to sort of rectify next week or the week after. But I haven't really had a chance to rectify it, and I couldn't have been really more badly kind of impacted in terms of injuries. You know, every single week I've had to make an injury to get 11 out, basically, because I've just had so many. So, you know, is what it is. You know, bring Tavernier in, gets injured straight away. So now Saka's injured. I mean, you know, and God knows what else. Can't remember now. So, yeah, but it is what it is. You know, you just got to play with what you got.
It is, and I don't know what. I think I must have clipped my team early. I think it was because I didn't need to wait for anything. I didn't need to wait for the refresh, etc. But because I was going to say the average score on mine is 48 and yours is 55, so I must have done mine just before the auto subs had kicked in. Anyway, that doesn't. No one really cares about that. So 70. I had the classic sort of what do you call it? The Passion of the Christ meme, by the way, with Alderete. So after four weeks of 1-pointers in a row, and I'm like, oh, you know, Reynaldo gets an assist and Mukiele gets an assist. It was that kind of. I know. But that was the least he could have repaid generally. But actually, what it makes me think, just looking at this team, which is really interesting, is that after a good conversation with yourself and Harry last week, you know, it was, I think it was clear beforehand anyway, but you know, just doing the singular move from Foden to Mbeumo obviously didn't make any points in itself, really. 2 points there, but what it did do, and just being kind of quite logical about it, was that it prevented some moves that I see quite popular around the houses, which is people selling Ekatike, people selling others to get, you know, people in that would have ultimately lost them points. So I think LR is a good example of this. Is on the wire, and he did a Ekatike to Evan Ilson, didn't he? And then Gordon to
Bruno. So his is different. So his, because I mean, it is a bit different because at least he did it to get Bruno in. But yeah, I mean, you felt like you were leaning closer to yeeting Ekatike out of the team last week because you're just so sick of him. But I didn't like that.
Yeah, I think it may have been that thing of, you know, where you just want to. Actually, I shouldn't say this on pod. You just sort of been over-egging a certain sense of the move and what have you. I think it was helpful as well to see him play well midweek and that sort of thing as well. But yeah, it's weird, isn't it? As you say, a lot of people who presumably were. I mean, he's had a price rise this week, so it just goes to show how quickly people's attitudes can change. And obviously, he looks in good fettle, as does Wirtz, and we'll talk about him later as well. But yeah, Saka being the issue there, and Anderson, another person who I just can't own, but now can't do it. But then obviously it's illogical now to do anything other than just use him as and when I need him up until wildcard, and he's a sort of fixture in the team now. So it's a strange situation, isn't it? But yeah, so yeah, not too bad. So we'll come to the first question in a minute because it is sort of Arsenal related. I clipped that earlier in the week because that was before, because obviously planning these, we didn't know the Carabao Cup result until after some of these slides were put together. So, but we did hear, didn't we, yesterday that Saka was going to be out of not only that fixture, but probably the next 2 to 3 games, or at least be some kind of, or miss the initial fixture, probably the double, that sort of thing. So he feeds into a lot of the questions. So I think we'll get straight on to, Arsenal kind of dominate this week. They obviously have a double. I'll just remind ourselves. So they got Sunderland this week. And then the double is 2 away games, actually. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't clock that until looking carefully and preparing for this, is that Wolves and Brentford are both away games. I thought, for some reason, I thought one of them was at home. But it matters not. So that's interesting in itself. But what we'll do, there's actually 3 or 4 questions that are all interrelated, really. So I'll just read them all out, and then we'll duck into these in no particular order. So FPL Grimes and FPL Clark both asked something along the lines of Timber, Saliba, or Rice as the best third Arsenal asset. So this is let's say you already have a Raya and a Gabriel rather. Is triple Arsenal defence the way to go? That's from Jackie Joe. So that's an interesting one, because I have a particular view on that. I mean, actually, just remind me, you have Raya and Gabriel, don't you? And then a midfield spot, so to speak. Whereas I have Timber and Gabriel. Best Saka replacements obviously is a very popular question. Lots of different situations here, so we should go through different scenarios, because I think a lot of people do have multiple transfers, and therefore they could pivot to a defender. Other people have one, and therefore perhaps it's a little bit more straightforward. And then, of course, early thoughts on Gabriel as a triple captain option. That's an interesting one, because I'll be honest with you, it feels like something I'll be thinking about over the weekend. But I should warn everyone here, in case they haven't clocked it, but the next deadline is Tuesday, so you don't have a great deal of time to think about it. So it is an important question. Where do you want to start with this? I mean, I suppose let's have a think about our own scenario. So, in your situation, just remind us what your Arsenal situation is going into this week.
Yeah, so I've got Raya, Gabriel, and Saka, and one transfer, importantly. So, I think it's fairly straightforward for me, to be honest. That it should be Rice. I mean, it's the most horrendously boring transfer of all time, and obviously it's like another dagger in the heart of after having 2 horrendous weeks. You've got to then get a guy in who everyone's got, who you're not. Saka was low owned, Rice is higher owned. It's your whole. You got to wait a whole week again, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can't let that come into it, unfortunately. Other players could do well, and the more I've had sort of I've let it sink in with Rice owning him. I mean, it's even more annoying, because the more you sort of think, God, like, I quite like it, actually. I quite like owning this guy already, and he's not even played any games yet. And I'm like, God's sake, it's quite nice, like, just looking at him in my team, and then I've got all this extra money, and it's just really annoying, because, again, like that I said about that sort of almost the trap with Saka, is it was never logical to do that unless Saka was injured. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I want you to sort of lead as well a little bit here, because, as you know, that I've said to you this week, I've done a bit of catching up today, but like, obviously what you do is, when you have truly 2 horrendous weeks, and your rank sort of falls out the sky, you just sort of check out a bit. That's the way you do, is just check out a bit, don't you? And just do
and it's
don't want the week to be as long. Yeah.
It's logical, isn't it? Ultimately, I mean, it's important for you and other people in this situation. Actually, we had a question, I don't think I've got it up on here, about, well, so there sort of is with Pete's one a bit later on, about admitting a mistake and rectifying it, or how one responds to something that's taken a bit of a knock, etc. And I think it is just a logical thing to tune out, tune off, whatever you want to call it, not hear everyone else's 101 points on bench boost or whatever it might be, and it's because it doesn't help. It's not particularly helpful. We can all be nice to other people when they've got points, but it's important to sort of take that mental kind of break as much as anything else. The reason why I wanted to start with where you were at, because I mean, my own view with a lot of these questions is that it is a bit of a tedious answer, but it is very circumstantial in a sense, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. So my situation is that so I have Saka as well. I did have 2 free transfers. But there are a number of circumstantial elements to the team where it makes no real logical sense to do anything other than the kind of straight switch. So, when we come to our decisions a bit later on, that will clarify things. But I've got Sanchez in goal, right? So immediately it makes very little sense to try and pivot, use 2 free transfers to try and get Raya, for example. In terms of an extra outfield defender, you're very inflexible when you have 3 outfield defenders from the same teams, and you would only take that kind of level of risk if it's an upside pick, right? And Saliba, whatever he is, perfectly reasonable pick this week. I don't actually particularly oppose it. Is that there's not enough upside there to make it worth an extra transfer in my situation. And personally, when we come to our teams later on, I've got a player who you could easily justify replacing, which is Michael Keane. But if he plays this weekend and he's back to being first choice, etc., then he's a hold for another few weeks, and I can stack up some transfers to use it more effectively elsewhere. So I do think a lot of it is circumstantial, and I would advise people actually not to. I know this is a terrible thing for an FPL podcast to say, but it's not really worth overthinking it dramatically. I think, especially with the midfield options that have been put our way, I've seen a lot of people consider Madueke and Trossard, etc. And I would go back to the rule of thumb that often you're better at referring to this, is think of what would happen if 100 of the games that you expect are going to be played out. What would you expect to happen? Now, someone like a Trossard or a Martinelli or a Madueke, they absolutely could haul, but you wouldn't consider them in any other game week. So why would it suddenly be something that you would consider greatly now? I just don't think it's really worth it. Whereas we have, with Rice, as boring as it is, you're going to get the minutes. You know what he is. And personally, the other thing I'd just like to finish on when you're thinking through your decision about this is, I think with Rice is quite an interesting one because, and actually, again, the Arsenal defenders might fall into this category as well. I don't necessarily think people should worry about owning them for that long. I mean, personally, whoever I bring in, I'll be removing one of those Arsenal players in a couple of weeks' time. I know they're very good. They've got middling fixtures at best after the double, but there are other things that I want to do, and so I'm quite happy. Rice is a good example of someone in 2 or 3 weeks' time. You don't mind moving him on, but if you have other problems, it's fine as well. It's not great. It's not exciting.
Well, that's the best thing. That's the best thing about Rice in terms of versus the other guys is, the simple fact is we don't know what's going to happen. It's usually not as simple as being able to make the transfers that we want to make, and but Rice, you can happily hold Rice until 31, whatever it is when they blank, happily. I mean, he's still one of the top scoring players in the game. I mean, I still think he's better than I suppose the way that the vibe that I'm getting from you in terms of I think he's just a really good pick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, by the way, just very quickly on him, and I'll come back to you in a second, is and obviously the Wire have gone out earlier today and they highlighted this, but his chance creation numbers in the last 6 are actually better than players like Saka anyway. I mean, obviously some of that might be down to lost minutes. I'm not entirely sure, but it's not too bad. His underlyings are actually quite reasonable. They're better than I expected, to tell you the truth. I've never really looked into it because I didn't really want to own him. But as you say, it's a perfectly reasonable pick. Yeah, for sure.
They're very good. I mean, I was just looking at last 6. I just had a quick look. I've just literally just got it down and looked for the first time. But I was just looking at last 6 XGI. I mean, Rice is right up there, 2.32. These are over the games when he hasn't actually really got any returns. It's just above Bruno Fernandes. There's a whole bunch of them that are around that sort of, up towards the sort of top 5 players. So, and the thing with Rice is that kind of goal involvement, that kind of expected goal involvement is virtually guaranteed. That's almost all expected assists. But when you just take the set pieces and the corners or half the corners or whatever, on a team like Arsenal that are that really are essentially set piece FC, And then he's so good at set pieces. He's so good at consistently putting them in. And then the people on the end of them are so good at all that sort of stuff. When I'm just flicking through the games, looking at Rice now, and I'm looking, right, what's his last 3 or 4 games look like that have been blanks? And like you say, I mean, they're virtually all like 0.4 XA or more. Yeah. And the thing is, and I'm not saying that like, oh wow, that's great or anything, but I'm saying that I think that's virtually a flaw. Like, it's very difficult for him to go through a game and not get that, not have those sort of chance creations when he's just taking all the set pieces on this sort of team. And then it's very, he's typically been very good on baseline bonus. When I look through those games that he's just blanked in, I think it was something like 11 DEFCON and then 10 DEFCON and then 10 DEFCON. So he's always very close to it. That's a higher floor of DEFCON than most. It's a higher floor than someone like Ndiaye even. So he's very good on DEFCON. So that's why we've seen what we've seen with Rice, where it's very easy for him to sort of haul big time. I mean, it's just so different now this season. I know this is sort of been said, but we've all got to let things sink in. There's a lot of things I've learned in the last 2 weeks even that I'll probably talk about on this pod in terms of what's sinking in when we think about these sort of players. But that's why we've seen these sort of, the sort of 17 pointers and stuff, and even those 11 pointers that someone like Rice can get from getting basically an assist. It's very easy for him to haul big time in any game, because that floor as well it's not even so much impacted by opposition at the moment, because who is there that he can play against? So yeah, I mean, I think Rice is also a very, very serious shout for captaincy, even in that double. I really do, because it's fine. Like, I know Gabriel will stand out, and I probably go Gabriel myself, because it just sort of, he's kind of got that extra stuff, Gabriel, that you think he still isn't quite even being picked up so much by the models and stuff, for example, in terms of just being extra good on bonus and being so much of a sort of goal threat, maybe. But again, you look at those games individually. I mean, Brentford away is not a good fixture. It's just an okay fixture, and it's not. Brentford are very good at home, and they can score. They can score against anyone. So it's not like it's a fantastic clean sheet fixture. Wolves have been good. Again, it's away. Like you said, 2 away games. So when you've got 2 away games against fairly decent sides, now don't get me wrong, I know Arsenal best defence in Europe probably, and they could easily clean them both, but it's not. You could also easily be in a scenario where neither of those games are cleans, and Rice could easily walk away with a couple of DEFCONs, a couple of assists here and there. And I mean, even when you think about the clean sheets, I mean, he gets a clean sheet point. I think it was the way I told him about like his stats. I know it's just like, how do you happenstance, whatever, but typically his DEFCON's been a lot better away from home. I don't know, I've not looked into that, but kind of those sort of things kind of make a bit of sense, having to do a bit more work against these guys at home that are at home. But obviously, you take a clean sheet point at DEFCON from Rice, and you've already got most of the clean sheet. You're 3 points in, and then you're talking about everything else as a bonus. Because someone like Timber at the moment, although he's fantastic and getting loads of good chances, he's not touch wood, because as a non-owner, he's not getting close on DEFCON, and neither's Rice.
No, not at all.
I mean,
what has he got it once, twice, maybe?
Yeah. So it's only really Gabriel. So Rice is like kind of stand out in terms of DEFCON. So it's one of those players where it's quite a nice balance as well. We're talking about triple defense. I know it's a big bet and it's fine, but like you said, Saliba's not looked like much more than a 6. None of them do really. So it doesn't. I'm not wild about it. Never mind the inflexibility, but it's quite a nice balance when you look at 2 away fixtures and you think they could easily not clean either of those. I don't know what the odds are of cleaning both, but it'd be low. It'd be like 25% or something cleaning both. So Rice is quite nice. Less than that, I suppose. Do you know what I mean? So it's just, I'm more and more thinking, actually, yeah, Rice is, although it's annoying and boring, really lovely to just put him there, leave him there. Yeah. And I do think, I don't know, because I've not owned Rice all this time, I don't really know what the effective ownership looks like, but I'd be interested in terms of the captaincy conversation, what the opportunity is there, because I think it's actually very close.
Yes. That is an interesting conversation, and we'll definitely talk about it even more next week. But we'll come back to that triple captain question just in a moment. I think it's important to give a few scenarios here, because I know that lots of people are in going to be slightly different circumstances, and I think we should probably just run through a few of them. So for those who have got a situation, let's say, where they don't have an Embuemo or a Wirtz or those kind of spots at the moment, but perhaps they do have a problem situation in defence and they don't have a Timber, etc. I mean, can you see the attraction in using this as a sort of pivot opportunity? Because obviously you and I both have lovely beardy Brian who well, we'll talk about him actually very briefly in our teams later on. A little bit frustrated by last weekend, but obviously, that can happen. It still looks like a very good pick. I mean, in that scenario where you did want one of those midfielders and you were flush for transfers, would you be tempted to pivot?
Say that again, for people who own who? Sorry, for like if you don't own.
Yeah, so if you're in a scenario, perhaps let's say you have you have a Gabriel and Raya and Saka, something like this, but you didn't have Timber. But you could use the opportunity to perhaps bring in one of those 8-ish midfielders like Mbuemo or a Wirtz, and then add in Timber as well. I mean, can you see the attraction with that?
Yeah, of course, for sure. I mean, Timber's a fantastic asset. I think the backdrop for it all is just that, like, I think transfers they're just so precious right now. It's like, transfers it feels really tight, and unfortunately, it feels very tight until the end of the season. I mean, this is the nature of the fixtures and the blanks and the doubles, and that's something that, like, you've really got to kind of acknowledge, in the sense that 31 is a blank, and a fairly sized blank, given that it's probably City and Palace, if it is. I think I'm right in saying, yeah, and obviously Arsenal, and so lots of moves are going to be required in the build up to 31 and in 31 to get a good team out, obviously. But then you look at that, for lots of us who are on that sort of kind of path of wildcard 32, means, you're not saving a transfer. Bench boost 33, I think, is the typical thing that we're looking at for most people. So a lot of people, you hopefully, but you'd have to be quite lucky to manage to do that, to go into a bench boost where you need all 15 and not have to use a transfer. Then we've got 34, which I think is 34, the week that's looking like likely free hit. Is that the blank week or whatever? So that's another one where you don't save transfers. And we know what end of season looks like when it's beach time and teams have qualified for Europe and teams are fighting for the league, and different options appear from all over the place, and you desperately want to improve your rank. And, there's these opportunities and players that you like, and suddenly you're in game week 35 with one transfer. And, it's very difficult to even see a way where that isn't going to happen. So for people who, you might say are flush with transfers or in this really sort of beneficial position, that's probably way more opportunity there to look at, like, what that means for later on in the season, or at these other crucial times when it's going to be. I mean, even what I've just said there is if things go well, in terms of you're not getting many more injuries. I mean, if it carries on like it has for me, where a key player of mine has been injured every week for the last 6 weeks, I'm screwed, because I'm going to get through the other stuff. I'm going to put 11 players out in game week 31. So even if it goes well, there's an awful lot of transfers there where it's, and it's always unfortunate, because that's kind of always the way, because of these doubles and blanks, that we end up at the end of the season with hardly any transfers, even in this time of 5. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, I do see it, but again, that you've already said, you are also then moving into things that are maybe less flexible. If it's double Arsenal defense, or things that you do, it's going to be more tricky in 31 to get around that. And as we'll talk about, when you talk about those players, the likes of Bumo and these opportunities of these 8-9 millions. I mean, you think about Wirtz, okay, looks great, but the next 3 are not good. I mean, City's turning into kind of an okay fixture for the attack, but the 2 after that they're not good. They're not good fixtures. The United guys, it's still a bit of an unknown, but I mean, it's a kind of a separate conversation. But it's like, you're talking about guys who, unfortunately and very frustratingly, are kind of the old school players. You've got to you're making a big bet even with the Bumo, because they've got to score goals. There's no other avenues. And it's really frustrating to even think about that, and that FPL has become such an avenues game in that sense. I mean, You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of a real big bet. If you're saying I'm going to use this to make 2 or 3 transfers to bring in a United mid instead, so I can change. So instead of having an Arsenal mid, I can have an Arsenal defender, and then I'm going to have extra things to do in 31, all because I want my United mid or whoever it is to score this week in what's actually a pretty tough fixture. Tottenham, who just seem frustrate a lot of really good teams, and finish 3rd in Europe for a guy who basically, because we're not talking about Bruno, and we're not talking about making sacrifices for the guys with lots of avenues like an Anderson or whoever else I can't think of right now. We're talking about guys who were making sacrifices for one avenue players, just goal players. And it's such a big bet to make because as we've just seen, and I've just gone through, Bumo's got 90 minutes against Fulham. United have scored 3 goals and he's come away with nothing. So against Spurs, does he play 90 minutes? Do we score 3 goals as a team? They're big questions. Well, then he still has to get some returns because no avenues.
Yeah, actually, I'm just going to give a note whilst we're on lovely Brian, because I know there was some concern about his fitness at the end of the last game as well. But he has been pictured in videos in training today or yesterday. So just if for owners and those people looking to potentially bring him in, it should be fine, I think, based on what we know. The other thing, by the way, you'll know more than me on this. He was taking some corners in the last game. Is that right?
Can't even remember, to be honest.
I think he was from one side. So, in terms of avenues, I know that's not, really doesn't change anything what you said there, but that's a nice little additional.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean,
yeah,
I think we've been weirdly. I think we've created the most XG from set pieces this season in the league.
Yeah, really.
I think so.
Oh.
I think so, which is weird. Or maybe it was just the last 10 weeks or something like that. Someone can correct me, but we're right up there in terms of set piece threat, which obviously is a lot of it's Bruno, but it's quite nice.
Yeah, so that's definitely useful. But I think no, I can see the appeal, but I agree with you. It's worth walking through it forward. I mean, I like everyone else probably when using sites like the FPL planning tools of whatever one you favor. Whenever I've been doing it over the next few weeks, well, up until the blank, really, you're never more. You don't. There's always a scenario where you're pretty tight on the money, and you've probably only ever got one transfer spare. Really, at any point at best. There are a lot of scenarios where it's quite hard to ever be flush in this kind of window. So I agree with you. Unless if you're using this opportunity to fix some problems, let's say you got an O'Reilly and you think that the minutes are problematic there, or someone who's injured, or perhaps you've got another midfield injury, etc., then it's not a bad thing to do. But trying to be efficient is probably quite helpful at this juncture as well. Is there? I'm trying to think of it. Yeah, actually, the other thing I was going to say is if you did have a few people have actually asked questions about whether it is worth bringing in Raya at this point in time, because I hadn't really given it a great deal of thought, because you either think you've made your bed with it or you haven't. If you did have a spare spot, is that a reasonable move to make, in your opinion?
It's not a bad idea, is it? I hadn't considered it myself, but if you want to get,
I hadn't until today.
Yeah, if you've got Gabriel and Timber, or you've got Gabriel and Rice, or whatever, Gabriel and Saka and more transfers, I don't mind it, because you want 2 Arsenal defenders because they're that good, don't you? Basically, certainly now that Saka's out. So, yeah, I mean, you get in a slight tier of guaranteed minutes above a Timber and pretty much anyone else apart from Saliba. You get in that. So you get in that. He's in that top tier of absolute guaranteed minutes. Fingers crossed. Probably get injured now, but and obviously the additional slight bonus of it. I say slight bonus, but when you really look at 31 and you get there and you plan ahead, it really is. It's going to be a bigger thing when you get there than you think it is, in terms of we've got Gabriel, we've got Haaland. We don't really want to sell either of those, ideally, because the value tied up. You will have triple Arsenal. I'd say maybe Palace players, but because of the nature of the fixtures, it's difficult. It's difficult to get 11 players out. So you will be glad of it when you can easily just play Dubravka and bench Raya. It likely will end up in an extra player. Virtually, you could almost say that.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
having Raya will end up in a whole extra player in 30 when some teams have got some really good fixtures. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind that really.
It's also quite helpful that players like Dubravka have actually reasonable fixtures in the late 20s and early 30s as well. So it's not. I mean, it's very unlikely you'll get a clean sheet, obviously, but it's not a terrible situation as well. The last question I just had on Arsenal that isn't really there is that some people have asked about penalties, and it is quite an interesting one because I know that a few people were sort of fairly speculatively trying to think through about the 6 different kind of removed scenarios where it might lead to Rice taking penalties and that sort of thing. I think that's fairly unlikely, but from what I know, I mean, obviously, if you assume that Gyökeres has got reasonable minutes, obviously. Okay, that's going to be the first port of call. Madueke's taken and missed one, I think, this season, hasn't he? He definitely missed one in the cup game.
Has he? I
Yeah.
remember wasn't Madueke part of that argument with it? Was it him and Nico Jackson when Thingy came and had to split them up and just give the ball to Palmer? Do you remember last season?
Yeah. But he missed one. I think he missed one in a cup game against Portsmouth, like a month or two back. So he definitely is keen to take one. Whether he will be allowed to again is another one. So I think realistically he's a bit down the line. Havertz, I think, has taken penalties as well. So
yeah, he's a good penalty taker. Yeah,
it's going to be whoever the striker is. I think realistically,
probably. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting point because I think Rice would be very good at penalties, just the way he strikes. One of those guys.
He's good,
yeah. He's like a sort of Harry Kane type in the fact that he's just going to bury it into the corner, a bit like he takes set pieces. But yeah, I mean, if Gyökeres is on the pitch, he's 100% going to. I mean, one thing Gyökeres can do is take a penalty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is kind of a shame that we can't consider him. Actually, really, it's just there's too many. Well, what with Havertz and Gabriel Jesus fit as well, it's obviously too risky, but it is a bit of a shame. But never mind. Any last words on the triple captain thing? We've had our say a little bit, haven't we, with the captaincy generally? But yeah, it's a good question from FPL Easy because of course we should start thinking about it. I don't know whether I've got an answer exactly yet, but what I will say is that okay, with just a note in the chat from lots of City players are being rested. So we'll take a look at the lineup in just a minute. I don't know about the main people that people have, Haaland and so on. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Cherky bench though. Yeah, so on triple captain. Yeah, I think it's obviously if City do have their blank, I should try and remember the different scenarios here, but then there is a little bit of an increased likelihood that they do have a double. Is that right? I'm trying to remember now. I know I should know this.
Yeah, I think basically, I think if City win tonight and they progress in the FA Cup and they progress in Europe, then they're likely to have another double somewhere. Because if they progress in Europe, their fixture can't be moved to 34. If they were knocked out of Europe, I think it could be moved to the blank in 34, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there could be another double there. I mean, with me with the triple captaincy, I don't think it's a bad move. Obviously not. I mean, the additional thing is, basically the triple captain is generally good, both early in the season, in my opinion, for the first one, which is what I did, and the reasons for that is because of the fixtures schedule. One of the reasons, so they just you can be a bit more sure of playing 2 fixtures, for example, and it's kind of similar now. That's one of the benefits is that at the moment we're in a little bit of a hiatus, aren't we, in terms of for a lot of teams for the next few weeks. Is that right? That they've not in Europe, and there's obviously you don't expect them to necessarily play the cup games, so that's quite a big thing when we're talking about playing triple captain in whatever week that is, 35, 33, I don't know, whatever it is for another double. I should probably look into this more because I do want to know that there will be another double. So is it only City? Because that is a problem, I suppose, isn't it? Because my point really there was so it does get a bit trickier at the end of the season, obviously, because you just don't know they're going to play both games. So it's certainly sensible to play it now. I always just, especially now with the second triple captain, and obviously having some bad weeks, and now my rank being slightly more of a difficult place. what's it called? Keeping the triple captain just gives you that bit more of control over variance for your rank, just a little bit more control over like what you can potentially do and how much you want to not Hail Mary it, but look for a sort of an opportunity for a bigger rank game. As soon as you use it, you've lost that ability, which I do like holding on to a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do need to know, is it because if actually it's not something, because I haven't really thought about it because I've shut off. Another thing where I'm completely useless this week is if it's not great if City is the only other double. If that's the case, someone else would have to tell me. Outside.
No, yeah, I don't think it is the case, but it's just that they are probably the one of the main options that people would be realistically looking at for as a big team with a double, that sort of thing later on. But
because the bench boost is guaranteed, isn't it, in 33?
Yeah, 33. So that's why I think that week is potentially also a very good week for triple captain, or at least a reasonable bet. But of course, you want to play your bench boost probably that week as well. So, I mean, actually, we did have a question about bench boost. I didn't stick it on here just because for brevity's sake, etc. But there are opportunities in the late 20s. Or even game week 30 for bench boost. You will see that your team looks not that bad. With Dubravka, good fixtures, and I think Alderete, etc. Those kind of players have okay games at the end of this little block as well. So yeah, it's something to think about more carefully. I think we'll cover it a little bit more next week, but it's definitely in the thinking. But I think at this point in time, fairly happy to captain Gabriel next week. Whether it's triple, I don't know whether it's going to give enough potential uplift really there. So I think it feels like fairly low ceiling triple captain in my head, but we'll come to it. It's certainly sort of logical, as you say.
Yeah, but again though, even Rice. I mean,
yeah.
Again, I just think people probably should think about that. It's very close between those two.
Triple captain Rice, Christ.
I know,
what have we come to?
You told us that last season. Triple captain in Declan Rice. I just wouldn't even triple captain anyone called Declan. Just that.
No.
I wouldn't triple captain anyone called Dale. There's no difference.
No. I'm trying to think of a footballer called Dale. I can only think of one off the top of my head, which is if anyone's watching and remembers back to the 1990s with Norwich City and West Ham for a brief time. Dale Gordon, who
there's definitely someone else. Who was it now? Dale, wasn't there a Dale Johnson or something? I don't know. There's definitely another one.
Yeah. Anyway, well, if you can think of any good Dales in the chat, feel free to do so. But yeah, one or two people were bench boosting earlier. Eno doing what he does best, finding an alternative route. Bench boost 26, Triple Palace, home against Burnley. So that's, I mean, if you got that kind of a situation. There are other things going on this week, not just Arsenal. So we'll whip through these a little bit quicker. But actually, a few questions where a few people have gone wobbly on Morgan Rogers. Try not to smile, Danny. So FPL Sally asks, is Rogers a hold? And then he comes up in another question that Ash sent us: best out of Cunha or Rogers to hold until wildcard 32, presumably making room for something else like an Arsenal midfielder or something like that probably this week. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, obviously you're not his greatest fan. Obviously you've besmirched him on previous pod. You've thrown him pelters. So, but would you hold him?
I haven't said any of that. I've never said anything bad about Rogers. It just makes me laugh. It's just so funny because this is why Rogers was never what people thought he was 3 or 4 weeks ago. Nothing's changed. It's just kind of hilarious. I mean, Rogers is a good pick. He's a good player. He's a good pick, and he's probably he's generally sort of never really a sell, I guess. But he's also never like an essential and like this guy that everyone thought everyone should have. He's an expensive player. But again, it's avenues. So if you pick a guy who doesn't have any avenues other than minutes, then you're gonna have to go through these weeks where he's done what he's just done, where he doesn't get anything. That's going to happen quite a lot. I mean, I think that's what we said. Like, I think it was when Alan was on here or something like that, and I said, will I ever be surprised if I go 5 games and get 5 blanks? No, because he's got no avenues. But he is got really good minutes, good player. Good pick, scores goals. I'm still scared of him. We said it on the last pod. I'm like, I think it was even when Villa scored on the weekend, it was disallowed in the end, wasn't it? But as soon as it said Villa goal, I was thinking, oh, for Christ's sake, it's another 60%. You know, you think it's going to be a goal or assist. But this is the lesson. This is what I was saying before, you know. So what are you happy with? Because you're picking a guy, that's what you're going to get. You're either going to get a goal haul or nothing regularly. And you could get loads of nothings. So he was never a great pick. He was never this amazing pick. But it's kind of frustrating even saying that, because, you know, who is not that at the moment? And you come back to just like Anderson. I don't know. And there's probably some others, but guys who are going to get you points every single week. So I mean, Villa's fixtures are still really good, aren't they? Just to
Yeah. So
to get out a little bit of frustration.
yeah.
I don't mean to offend anyone with Rodgers, but it's just like just so annoying. But I mean, he's only blanked once, so two and then 8 and then 2. But yeah, so sorry, Rich, you were saying he's got.
No, I was going to say. I mean, I won't read out his. I could sweep forward just a couple of slides to just remind ourselves of Villa's fixtures. But from here, Bournemouth away, Brighton at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away, couple of slightly dodgier ones, but West Ham in the blank at home, which is obviously a lovely one. And I think that's the thing. The handy thing about I was going to say Watson, Rodgers, is that I've got a cold, so forgive me. Throughout this period, is that at any point he is an easy out ball. You know, again, if you decide you don't like Rice after you're done with him and the double, etc., you know, it's fairly straightforward. Or moving to someone like a Vitz again. You got that option there as well. So yeah, I think he's good the whole way through. I wouldn't rule out, you know, if I have a spare transfer in game week 31, for example, and I've got, I probably, you know, would consider that one. It's perfectly reasonable. So yeah, but it's a bit more tough with that question from Ash about which of Cunha or Rodgers to hold until wildcard 32. I mean, I suppose Cunha really is the opportunity player in that scenario, but you'd be hard pushed to assume to think that he had better minutes or anything like that. So I suppose logically you might think Rodgers is the one to hold, but what do you think?
That is actually a tough question. Like you say, Rodgers is sensible minutes, very good fixtures, but I mean, United have got good fixtures and Cunha's minutes aren't as good, but I do expect him to keep starting at the moment. I mean, you know, you do have to give some weight to when you're just seeing good form and good feeling as well. And like we are seeing that with Cunha at the moment. Like he's in a good place. I mean, he's returned in each of his last 3. He's got 3 goals in his last 5, but he's got assists off the bench as well in the 2. And he's always looked great when he's come on. The guy's, why is it God? But
yeah,
no, but you know, he is. That's what he does. He does goals and assists. You know, more so than really anyone in that United team. You know, he's kind of hunting for goals and assists more than Bumo even. So you do have to give that some weight. You know, they're both good picks. I wouldn't really want to sell any of them. But over-analysing things and selling a guy who's in form and is just playing well, that rarely goes well, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Another midfielder that's causing some consternation, and you're probably the best person to ask about this one, is about Ndiaye. And it's often been said, isn't it, that he's obviously a really good player. I think it's, you know, he's potentially destined for bigger things. Sorry, Everton fans, I don't mean to offend. But yeah, he comes up here. Ndiaye was a mistake, wasn't he? What is your approach to admitting a mistake and was made, and rectifying it? So that's from our good friend. And I've been asked to say communications manager of the pod, because he sent out a few things for us in the past. Pete or MFL, MF Doom. So do follow him. Yeah, so I mean that's a tricky one, isn't it? Because I think I know that you have to put yourself back in the scenario of he's a great example of, in that one particular week after AFCON where it started a reasonable run of games with, I think it was Leeds at home or something like that. That Ndiaye just made terrific sense for one not for 1 week only, but it made more sense to jump on at that point. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't. But what are your thoughts about first him, and also just rectifying mistakes? Whether you're sort of cut through it enough to deal with it straight away, or you just roll with it for a while?
Yeah, I mean, two very different questions there. I mean, on Ndiaye, first of all, we're all so kind of short on time and patience at the moment because it's a hard season that people are getting quite reactionary off very few games, and it's just there's less room for patience in today's game. And I think Ndiaye was a mistake, only just really. I mean, for me, so let me just give you my example as kind of some context, was that it's not a major mistake. I mean, for me, so I put myself back now when I got him like 2 weeks ago, to get Bumo, who I was pretty confident about, who I wanted. I couldn't afford Enzo, so he was like 6.4 or something. So I couldn't get Enzo, so I was 0.2 out of that. So my kind of limit was about 6.2 or whatever Ndiaye is. Can't remember, something like that. So for me, I narrowed it down to basically Ndiaye or Anderson. Even though, and that was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and still kind of struggling a little bit with the Anderson pick, but knowing he is objectively good and there are consistent minutes there. But again, so we judge it by the outcome. But looking at those two players, there isn't and wasn't much difference at all. You'd probably still say Ndiaye probably should be a little bit better on paper. I mean, it's very close because what you've got there is essentially, boiling it down to it's simple, is that Anderson is guaranteed DEFCON. So that's a big plus. Now, Ndiaye is good at DEFCON, which is a problem because it's not enough really with DEFCON. You want someone, if DEFCON is a factor, it's got to be pretty, but he is very good with it, right? So that's also been a second frustration. Because by the way, first game I've got him, he had 7 DEFCON at half time, and then they changed his position and he didn't get another DEFCON for the rest of the game. And the last game, he completely def cooked me because he was on 11 DEFCON after about 68 minutes. 11 DEFCON. In a week where I'm not getting any points, and he stayed on 11 DEFCON, and even though he played another fucking 35 minutes. So, that DEFCON was actually quite good. And then the other thing with Ndiaye is he is on penalties. And Anderson, for example, isn't. At least we don't think. So that's really big. So you've got a cheap guy who we think is pretty much guaranteed to play. He's actually played very good minutes, certainly 90 minutes in the last game. And he's on penalties, and he's pretty good at DEFCON. And he's also an absolute baller. So even if you've got no numbers and you're not putting up XG and stuff, that's still decent. That still should be pretty decent. Now, some of the problems with that is even that being kind of nailed and on penalties has changed a bit from last season for 2 reasons. In terms of it being less and not really enough, is that, you take Anderson, for example. Anderson's guaranteed DEFCON. So virtually, I'd be willing to say that. I know he's not, but I'd be willing to sort of view it that way. So Anderson plays 2 games, he's got 4 points. So you're hoping with Ndiaye, even with no numbers, you're really hoping, can he just get a penalty? Because that's what I've paid for. Can he get a penalty? Which you can easily go without for ages, ages and ages. Even if he gets a penalty, it's 5 points. And of course, it's very different to what it was because it's not 8 points anymore like it was, or 7 points. It's probably going to be 5, maybe 6, because you get no bonus for it. So all of a sudden, just hoping for penalties is worse than it was versus this relentless attack of DEFCON points that's just hitting you in the face. It's just jabbing you. Anderson's basically just jabbing me in the face every week like that with a long... He's basically like a southpaw with a really long arm, just punching me in the nose every week. And I'm occasionally just trying to throw a Hail Mary, a haymaker, and just not landing and just missing and just running out of energy. And then he's just continuing. And then I'm on the floor and he's still jabbing me and punching me in the face, just with these little tiny mini jabs that are just like, breaking my nose. And yeah, I mean, so that's in hindsight. Again, I wish I'd gone Anderson because it's just you really have to think about that flaw of being that's so certain of something, of some points. Because what really pissed me off, of course, is what I didn't factor into that is when you just turn around and you're getting full bonus from no returns. So Anderson's getting a 7-point blank. Wipe that smile off your face. You're in the corner of this boxing ring. I'm being beaten up on the floor, and you're that smarmy git with the suit on who's just like got the bet on the right guy, and he's in his corner and he's spitting at me when I'm on the floor. But like that's tough to take because I mean, even I was like flicking into that game with Anderson, having a look, and I saw him on like 9 or 10 DEFCON after about 70 minutes or something. I thought, well, he's guaranteed to get DEFCON there because there's no way he's not. But he wasn't and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he was even in the top 3 for bonus at that point. It was just looking at, okay, Defcon, I can take it. You click at the end of the game, he's on 17 Defcon and full bonus. And you're just like, for fuck's sake. So, yeah, there's a bit of a rant there, but you know what I'm saying? So actually, Ndiaye wasn't that bad. He had a lot of avenues. He's got a lot of avenues. I mean, the biggest problem with I will stop in a second. The biggest problem is actually Everton. You know, they're just such a frustrating, they're a very solid team, but they're just never doing more than like 1 goal stuff. They're just not very attacking. And the last thing I'll say on Ndiaye, one of the reasons, a big reason why I got him in, again, so I'm weighing that up. I'm looking at penalties, I'm looking at minutes, I'm looking at the fact he's a baller. But with Grealish injured, Grealish's role in the team, and by the way, this still remains to be seen. He could become better with Ndiaye. It's just that you're relying on, it doesn't feel as reliable. But Grealish basically had that role of being allowed to just stay up top, hold the width. He was the outlet. He was given a lot more license in that team on that left. So it was kind of like the team and the system, the function needed that someone else up front with the striker. So I thought, well, there's got to be a pretty good chance there that Ndiaye, because I know he's going to go to the left, which he did, but also, is he going to get a bit more license to not have to do as much defensive work and be that bit more of that outlet? And that was a bit of a gamble. And it's he kind of has, he's not looked totally fit from AFCON, but he's kind of big chances and he's kind of played as a second striker a bit. So yeah, I'll come back to the second question in a second about a mistake. But
yeah. I mean, the main takeaway from that is thank the Lord for Elliot Anderson. A man that I've been.
You didn't even want him. You wanted to sell him. You didn't want to buy him.
In my team, I didn't want to buy him. I don't know how to own him, but here he is, and he gets his 3 bonus for doing jack shit. But no, I mean, my answer to this question a little bit is quite specific to the Ndiaye point, but I mean, and I was going to joke a minute ago that your approach to admitting a mistake was to deny that it was a mistake and double down, but which is only partly true. But I think the answer really to this one is that it wasn't a mistake, right? I mean, like in this particular instance, it wasn't. Okay, yeah, it hasn't turned out well, but I suppose the parallel would be something like owning Thiago this season. If you owned him during the spell where he gets like 6 penalties because things just happen to go your way, you might consider yourself, was that skill, and owning him recently has not been skillful? I don't think it's quite as simple as that, is it? So it is a little bit down to just an unfortunate sense of timing. But I think you're right with Everton, because I mean, take for example, there was a period, wasn't there, that this only briefly worked out for me with Keane, and maybe it worked up better for others with Tarkowski at a different point in the season. They looked like conceding every week, and they still managed to somehow dig out a clean here and there. And the needle hasn't moved tremendously, and now they're not doing that. And actually, another thing in Ndiaye's favour was that Barry has started to look quite good, and so actually, plausibly, it was quite a reasonable thing to do, because he's actually supplying someone who has been finishing fairly well lately. So it's a frustrating one. But coming down to the rectifying the mistake, I mean, I suppose part of the skill is in recognizing when it was a genuine mistake rather than an outcome, sort of an unfortunate outcome. But what's your thought to rectifying the mistake?
Sorry, I'm just still going off and enjoying my head. But yeah, I mean, I just wish Ndiaye would I was just thinking about that Michael Cayley pod, the FML did.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Say quickly, because that was a great pod. And
Yeah.
they did talk a lot about Ndiaye, and he's one thing. He's got all these amazing attributes as a footballer. And maybe this one thing was the reason why, because I think he was like dropped and whatever when he was like 15, 16, or wasn't picked by certain clubs, so it was late to kind of show how good he was. And the big thing is he just doesn't really have that. He's never really had that volume of like being a difference maker, of getting shots off, volume of shots, volume of making a difference. He's just so good and so unselfish, and I just wish he'd add that to his bloody game, because he can be such a difference maker. But anyway, without going on about Ndiaye, I mean, in terms of the admitting a mistake and rectifying, I mean, I am pretty ruthless with that, and objective. I think, like, if I had loads of transfers, and would I sell Ndiaye? I mean, if he had a bad fixture, probably. probably, I'd be quite happy to do that, but it's not really about that. I just move on. I just look for the next kind of best move, the next optimal move, and let player like Ndiaye just sit there, because you never know. I'm in a situation now where I've got a lot of players I don't like, but you just never know what could happen. Lots of them could just return for lots of various reasons. And Ndiaye could get a penalty, could get 2 penalties. They all can do the points. I think a good example in terms of admitting a mistake is one that I could think about at the moment. Again, comes back to Anderson as an example. Now, I'm not really going to have the moves or the transfers to get him in, for example, but it might be that I wanted like a midfield facilitator, or wanted to get a different player up front or something like that. And we're actually getting quite late. Not late. We're not getting late in the season, but we're getting towards. We're moving towards the end of the season time. And again, people want to make these jumps and these moves in ranks. And of course, Anderson does not hit you and strike you as that player at all. And maybe he isn't. And so people would be even more reluctant and to sort of say, was that a mistake not owning him yet in the season? Is it a mistake not owning him now? But is that a mistake that I want to correct and get him? Now, I would say it kind of, none of that really matters, and maybe it was a mistake. And yes, I would get him. Yes, I would get him. And I don't care that it kind of looks like it might not be enough in terms of the returns and the type of player he is, because he's just objectively a very good pick. You have to just think about objectively what is going to get you the most points in your mind for the rest of the season, regardless of what that looks like or what rank that is. I think he's quite, do you know what I'm saying? He's quite a good example of that kind of like how I would approach a mistake, in that I would get Anderson still now and in the future with a transfer, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Other than that, if you've made an obvious mistake, it's just you just deal with it. You just transfer them out. You don't hit them out, but you transfer them at the first opportunity. I mean, what do you think? Is that just I don't know. Can't think of a more interesting way to answer that.
No, I actually think part of your answer there about the point of hits is actually quite useful in answering this question a little bit, because partly circumstantial, but I haven't taken a hit this season, and someone like Anderson is part of the reason for that, right? Because it's never, to state the obvious, taking a player like him out, let's say for someone that you really want, immediately they have to score a minimum of 8 points, which is so unlikely, even for a really good player, to be able to do anything about that, quickly. So he's a very, very handy one for this. And actually, I think people do underestimate the value of those players. A couple of times this season, you've had to do something like get rid of Gabriel when you didn't want to, and something like that. But same with Bruno, selling Bruno when you don't want to, but because he's got injured or something like this. The value of someone where effectively they're never a problem, so that immediately, it's sort of it raises the probability of the ability to roll. It also removes another small possibility of making a bad decision, because someone is always going to be there and to be reliable, etc. They have such advantages, players like that, because they stop you doing the stupid stuff. A good friend of ours, who actually did have a very good kind of wild card week, Stu, who's probably listening to this back later, Pep Talk, is he got rid of Anderson on a wild card, and I can totally see why, because there's lots of good midfield options out there at the moment, and he's already kind of regretting it and wanting to bring him back, I think, because, as you say, it just removes that one area. And actually, there is an argument, isn't there, where you could have had him and Garner, and maybe even in future weeks to you Douglas Luiz and that sort of thing. And who knows? But
I'm just trying to think of like another example in terms of like mistakes and how you deal with them, because it's so hard to answer that question, because what does it mean? But I'll give you an example of a mistake that I made in hindsight, and one that I knew was a mistake quite quickly, and what could I do about it? And that's Anthony Gordon.
Oof. Yeah.
So, what does that look like? What does that decision look like? So what that decision looks like is, I got him in when we didn't really know, like he looked like could be a good pick, like the minutes should be good, or he's been historically okay, and was on penalties. But he had 5, I think it was 5 very good fixtures in a row.
Yeah.
So, you bring him in and then you don't like the minutes and you don't really like what you're seeing on the pitch. And obviously at that point, you kind of think it's a mistake, but what do you do about it? I mean, it would have been, again, especially with like hardly any transfers. It wasn't logical for me to take him out in any of those weeks. And of course I knew he would score against Liverpool, and I even said it last week and I nearly tweeted it. But again, at least it became logical there in terms of fixtures. I mean, so I don't mind, a mistake's a mistake. I'd like to take him out. It was never an opportunity because he had good fixtures. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, with mistakes, is you only have to think about what you can take forward, about what was that mistake, like what can you take forward in terms of what you've learned. And that's really what I'm trying to extract from, for example, the Ndiaye decision. Now, with Gordon, it is a little bit more complicated because I was about to say something, but I suppose what mitigates what I was going to say is the minutes. Because what I take forward from Gordon is avenues and minutes. So he did have penalties. So that was a big thing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got him, because it was still looking a little bit iffy on the other stuff. But obviously that kind of wasn't enough. And what I took forward from that one is what I'm saying. So you compare it to like a Bruno G or something, who I don't think is a very good pick. I don't think he's ever been a very good pick. But of course, minutes, absolute minutes, whatever, some set pieces maybe. So what I take forward from that Gordon thing is even more so normal, even because I am a totally minutes guy, is, what does that look like? I wouldn't really buy a play like that anymore. That I'm thinking, I'm not sure he's going to get more than 60 or 70 minutes, no matter how good the fixtures are, is what I'm going to take forward from that, is no matter how good the fixtures are, essentially, especially in this modern game, because that's changed from previous seasons in terms of what we get from DEFCON, avenues and all that other stuff. So it's changed that. It changes the decision dynamics of every player. So even just being 60, 70 minutes non-penalties with good fixtures isn't actually enough or as good as it was a season or two ago. So that's what I take forward from that mistake. And I knew it was a mistake quite quickly because I was what I've seen on the pitch. It was also unlucky. He had a goal disallowed that was onside. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was the same weekend that Verts got given that goal. It was a foot offside. And, he also missed a couple of big chances. It couldn't have gone any worse. What do you take forward from the Ndiaye decision? Is probably a bit less, because this is a guy who is more talismanic. The minutes are more nailed, and the minutes are better. And he has penalties, and he has better DEFCON than Gordon. So there's less I can take forward from that mistake. It's just that in this era of DEFCON, and some sort of paths to almost guaranteed points, it just changes that floor a little bit even more. So that's what I take forward from the Ndiaye thing is right, like, and how do I recalibrate in terms of how I assess virtually guaranteed DEFCON and price and what I'm paying for that. So yeah, that's how to deal with mistakes. Is just, for me, is just like, it doesn't matter. Just be objective, correct the mistake immediately if you get a chance, if it's a really bad mistake. But obviously the only thing that matters is what can you take forward from it, because it's not about the outcome.
Yeah.
Actually,
sorry.
No, sorry, go on. You go.
Oh, what I was going to say is actually that links us nicely onto the last question there, because I think quite a few people questions kind of implied, that people felt like they'd made a mistake by missing out on Chelsea assets from last week, and actually that's quite an interesting. Whether so the question at the bottom of the screen there is it still worth jumping on Chelsea, especially João Pedro with 3 decent games left, or are transfers too precious with the blank in mind? And that's from our occasional guest in chief, Jossie. And actually that's an interesting one in itself, because I suppose Enzo was the guy for us, right, where we could have seen Brian and Enzo and just look at the fact that Enzo done the points, and whether that was a mistake, But I'd be interested to see whether you regard that as a mistake or not.
What, getting Enzo like over Boomer?
Yeah.
I can't really. I can't. And I always knew that Enzo was a good pick, and I always knew that Boomer was a good pick, and I thought they were very close. And I was deliberating over it for days, and I was always just very slightly on Boomer. And I think if you play that out 1,000 times, Boomer is the better pick, because I did think that Palmer's minutes looked a little bit better, and he was going to play that one, and the way it sort of panned out, and obviously that takes away some penalties. I did think that the consistency of the way United play, they're always going to be goals, whether they concede any or not, and Bumo's just a fantastic player, and you just think there's just more volume there, potential. You expect there to be more volume, more chances for that player, and that that sort of thing. So I think you've played that out 1,000 times, it's better. And obviously, I mean, so frustrating. And I don't want to just say Enzo did nothing and he scored, because it's very hard to make sense of Enzo, because that's true. But that is also what Enzo does. I mean, the one thing that I've always said about Enzo is he does have this natural ability to sniff out a goal. Like he sniffs it out. He knows when players are tired. He knows when he can make better runs into the box. He knows where to be in the box. He has no fear. He's good with his head. He puts himself in these positions. Some people just know it. Someone like Rodgers, for example, he said himself, like he's always struggled to get in the box. He's kind of a great player, but he's never really had that proper instinct. He's so good that he still gets some goals, but he doesn't have that proper instinct. That sniffer, that poacher. But Enzo does have that, so he can do nothing. And we know he's so fit that he can do it, but it's still incredibly punishing when that's all it is. You've still got to score that one chance you get, and it's just recently he has just done that, and he's been given penalties that were never penalty in a million years. So it's incredibly frustrating, but it is what it is.
I mean, actually, before I give my tuppence of thought on this particular question, I'm going to admit one of my mistakes, and I'm going to rectify immediately by suggesting that you like and subscribe to this podcast if you're enjoying the content, because I never remember to ask. So that's the least you can do to make me feel better and rectify my mistake.
2,000 likes. 2,000 likes is the aim.
2,000 likes target. Speaking of which, Harry's in the chat, and he asks, if you were buying now, would you go Bumo over Enzo? I know my answer to this. Earlier in the chat, and I'll just put it back on the screen for a second. Earlier in the actually before we even started, he was pondering whether to buy Brian, Enzo, or Witz, and I said I know who's third on our list. Whether that's right or wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's still so hard between the two. I really do. I think that Bumo is. I mean, we'll talk about United for a second as well. I mean, in terms of his minutes, in terms of what people think as well, let's just think about Bumo for a second. So he got 90 minutes, and obviously Sesko came on and scored. So Sesko's looked good. I mean, he really knows how to get chances, that guy, Sesko. I mean, he's starting to sort of chip away at minutes and stuff. What I do think is, a lot of people saying Ahmad's been so good, Ahmad's got to start on the right. I'm not sure that's true, really. I still think, and this is completely subjective, like I still think that if he's going to experiment and he wants to play Sesko up front or Cunha up front, something like that, I would still like to see Bumo on the right. Like, Bumo is such an amazing player. Like, he is. Ahmad's amazing, but Bumo is better right now. That might change in a few years, but Bumo is better on the right wing than Ahmad is. And so I think I'd be shocked. I think if there's any kind of experiment there, I mean, we saw Bumo move onto the left. I didn't even see the game at that point. I didn't hear it was great, and it's not really what I want to see. But we did see Cunha come off instead. Cunha's the one who comes off first. You'd expect that. Bumo can play anywhere across those front three. I'd actually like to see him on the right more often, to be honest, especially in those sort of games like Fulham, because he's just so good there in terms of, and he's turning on his left and kind of blah, blah, blah. So my point here is that I think if we can extract anything from that game, I do think the minutes are even better for Bumo than they were. I think. Mm-hmm. I don't think he plays Ahmad over Bumo if that's a decision he's making. I just think that would be a wrong decision. I think, Ahmad's exciting, fantastic. He can do lots, but Bumo's better on the right wing. Bumo is a sensational player. So, I mean, again, we come back to Chelsea. Harry knows better than me, but they're obviously now... they don't have the extra games, do they? Am I right in saying that? They've not got the extra games.
No, yeah, they finished in the top 8, yeah.
We only need Palmer to be on the pitch. I mean, Palmer is another discussion. He just has not looked himself. He just does not look himself. He's definitely got something majorly wrong. But if he gets the minutes, it changes a lot for Enzo. It changes his position and it takes away penalties. The next game, Wolves away. But I mean, what I will say is the two after that, it is terrifying. going into those games without Enzo.
For sure, yeah.
And they're ridiculously good fixtures, especially Burnley at home. So I honestly think this is like a gut call for anyone in terms of Bumo and Enzo. Again, I mean, there's an element of fitness playing in, and there's an element of form playing in that may change what I'm about to say. But again, I do think if you played it out 1,000 times, the next 4 matches, that Bumo would come out on top. I think probably. Again, that's what I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is a bit of a response to Pete's earlier question here as well. But one of the way to deal with potential mistakes is to be very bloody minded and to double down. But I wouldn't be thinking at all about bringing in Enzo at this point. I think he's been very, very fortunate to get what he has, and well done to them. And it's perfectly reasonable because again, those returns have come at that point of the game where ultimately he seeks an opportunity. He's there because of the minutes, and he's an important member of the team, etc. And it's not fortunate that he got those points in that regard. But no, I would place Enzo comfortably third on that list of Mbuemo, Wirtz, and Enzo. I really don't think you go there now.
I mean, the other factor is obviously the money. He is still cheap.
Yeah,
and
true.
Quite a lot cheaper. I
Yeah,
mean, in terms of Jossie's,
1.5.
In terms of Jossie's question, I think for a lot of people, it could depend on some of these players can potentially give you more than just the fixtures they've got. So if you take someone like mine, for example, where you've sold Saka and you've got loads of money, people maybe have thin squads, or they've got a GUI and like me, a Devaney, or someone who's like rubbish in midfield. What a Chelsea player can do if you bring them in now is potentially not just give you those fixtures, but give you an extra player for the next 2 or 3 fixtures. That is another element that I do. I mean, even me, I could, for example, bring Enzo in for the 2 home games, and that is not an unreasonable suggestion because, for example, it would allow me to bench a defender who's got a rubbish fixture because I can suddenly play 3-5-2. It would allow me to maybe bench Thiago against Arsenal if I wanted to. So it so it potentially is the same with Jossie with someone like João Pedro. If you want to go João Pedro, I don't know what the minutes look like there exactly, but he's certainly on form. You can see that a mile away. But it potentially gives you more. You know what I mean? If it gives you a bigger squad, that's more than just bringing in a player with fantastic fixtures. If it's not doing that, then it's a transfer in and out. If it's not doing that, I'm not sure it's enough.
Well, yeah, just on that actually, because when I spoke to Jossie about this before he asked the question, I think his scenario was really that he was walking through his transfers and he has the money in the bank to do what is it, Krupi? Yeah. Is that right? Krupi to Pedro? No, I don't know whether I'm right about that, but he can basically bring him in for a short period of time anyway. And essentially what that means is he gets to bench Harry Wilson for several fixtures over the next few when he has slightly worse games, like Man City away and that sort of thing. So it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because, I mean, I would lean fairly squarely on the side of, no, it's not worth it. And I would be holding the transfer there because he's already got options that are perfectly decent. But I do understand it. I think it's easier for some reason, it's easier to justify in my head when you explained it through the Enzo prism, because it feels like, well, again, midfielders, there's an easy way to kind of duck out of it and move on and that sort of thing. Whereas João Pedro, you're committing to a structural change. But that said, I mean, actually, no, I should be careful about what I say here. Something I'm going to decide to do this week is based on the idea that I can move Gui to Thiago now, and I've got exact money in the bank, and it may well even be that I make an extra penny because I'm sure Thiago may well drop again at some point because his price seems to change every day. He's one of those strange players, isn't he? But yeah, what do we think? I mean, in Jossie's shoes, moving that dud striker up to João Pedro at this point in time, giving him a structural change. I mean, he can afford to do so now because of presumably the sort of Saka fallout. I know that he actually sold him a bit earlier, but what do you think?
I don't mind it, to be honest, because of what I've just said. It's going to give him a bigger squad. It's 3 fixtures. I even think it's reasonable to consider it with 2. I mean, there is the thing we talked about saving transfers, but when you talk about Burnley at home and then what is it, Leeds at home or something, you know, it's ridiculous. I think there's a good feel at Chelsea at the moment. There is a good feel there, so this factors in. It certainly looks like all the players are playing for the manager, and it looks like to me that João Pedro's thriving the most. I mean, what is this guy doing? I mean, what a frustrating guy, because why has he not looked like this for so long? I mean, maybe it's just a fitness thing, but he's moving differently on the pitch, João Pedro. He looks really hungry. I mean, he's such a class player. He's shooting on sight. I hate it when you start randomly laughing at the chat, because
I can tell you why he's moving differently. It's because he feels threatened by Adama Traore.
Oh yeah, no, that was hilarious, wasn't it?
And by the way, Cucurella got what he deserved. I mean, like, everyone wants to throw him to the ground at some point.
That was so funny. That was so funny. But I mean, that was also annoying. I mean, João Pedro thing, because it didn't think he was a good pick this weekend, and obviously he wasn't. I mean, somebody messaged me on Twitter, Grant or someone like that, and asked if he should play João Pedro and Thiago this weekend, and I just said Thiago. I mean, because I don't think João Pedro will play, and I think Thiago will.
Yeah.
But this is everything's going wrong at the moment, you know. So João Pedro didn't play, comes on and scores. Thiago, did you see that decision for that foul on Thiago?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Absolute disgrace. So another thing that couldn't have gone more wrong, you know. So Thiago was clean through basically, and there was like a shoulder barge with another player. It was never a foul in a million years. That player fell over because Thiago's so strong. And obviously that was Thiago then clean through one-on-one. From the halfway line, there was no one within 30 yards of him. It would have been clean through. And knowing Thiago at the moment probably scores it. And not only was it not a foul, but the referee blew his whistle. You know, so instead of just letting play go on like he's supposed to. So incredibly frustrating. But, you know, some of the decisions this weekend, it just shows you, I mean, VAR can't override, you know, psychological foibles of human beings, and they never will be able to. And you see that? Did you see that? The one for what's his name for Spurs? The goal, the Gay decision. Do you see the Gay decision for when Solanke scored?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it just shows you, doesn't it? I mean, because I'm not bothered, and I want to see that as a goal. You know what I mean? But when you realize, I know it's been talked about to death. Probably I've not been listening to what anyone's been talking about this week, but that is 100% of the time given as a penalty if it's a defender kicking the back of someone's leg. 100% of the time. You know, so it just shows you that it doesn't matter whether VAR is there or not. There are no actual rules in football. There are no rules. There are no rules. It's only what silly humans want to see happen, or what we think should happen in any moment, or what our emotions think. And not even VAR can change that. There are no rules. It's just like, which is just even more reason to not have VAR, so then we can celebrate goals again. Because even VAR can't override. They don't even know the rules, and they can't override what they think should be happening. It's just comical. So anyway, yeah, sorry, I'm on a bit of rant there, but Thiago, bloody clean through.
Yeah, very, very unfortunate. I've just worked out, by the way, why Jossie has slipped this question in tonight, because I just tapped into live FPL price changes predictor. Guess who's top? Guess who's top of the list?
Oh my god,
Mr. João Pedro. And actually, for Harry's benefit, Saka going down and Mbeumo going up tonight, so you're going to make that decision tonight, Harry. But if it helps, Jossie, because you'll probably do it anyway, Harry actually says João Pedro is 100% our best attacker to buy, and that list includes Enzo, presumably. So yeah,
yeah, I could probably even look at that. Actually, I need to think about João Pedro a bit more. In terms of
you and
he really does look. I mean, he really does look
very good. Yeah,
it's really changed. I mean, Harry was down on him a lot, wasn't he, last week because of the minutes? But that's changed a lot. That's changed a lot now, as we've seen, without those extra games and stuff. But yeah, got him in my draft team as well. I think I've got him and Delap in my draft team. So I'm just like, I just play them. I've only got 11 players, so I just play Delap and João Pedro every week, and that one of them just comes off the bench and gets an assist or something.
While we're at it, I mean, I've got 2 draft teams, and I've got Jean-Philippe Mateta. I mean, there's the most annoying scenario. I can't tell whether he actually is going to have surgery or whether he's going to carry on or
Oh,
whatever.
he's surely. I mean, I've only seen like the headlines, but surely he's just gonna have surgery because it looks to me. Does it not look like they know that he's injured and it's like trying to sell, like trying to sell a house that has got a massive leak and the roof's about to cave in. That just looks like they were just trying to like, go and have a fitness test at wherever he was going into Milan. They might not notice. They might not notice that he's about to break any moment. And of course, they did notice. And you think, you cheeky bastards, you're trying to sell us in for 30 million. So then it looks like, because he's only got another year in his contract after the summer, that he's going to have surgery straight away because obviously they're going, right, we've been caught out. We tried to sell a house with a leak. We can't sell him in the summer now unless he has surgery now because they can't get any money from him otherwise. Surely. That's probably obvious, but he looks like he's fucked to me.
Yeah. Well, if you saw the options I have to pick from in striker draft to replace him, I mean, I think the best one I could find is Tati Castellanos.
What do you think of Sarah's? What do you think of Sarah's pick at the moment?
Well, I'm glad that you say that because actually the question at the bottom may as well be Crystal Palace, isn't it? Because we'll discuss this soon as well. Are transfers too precious to have a go on Sarr or Munoz or to a lesser extent Richards if you've got a scenario? I mean, I've got a scenario, for example, where you could justifiably go keen to him if you need to. Jossie has exact cash, by the way, for that move at the bomb. Classic.
No, he doesn't.
He does. I know he's saying that. He's just psyching himself up. So I do have extra exact cash. I do.
He's put all his spare account into another account. All his spare pretend money has gone into. Like when people are real misers, and what they do is they actually earn loads of money, but they tell everyone they're skint because what they do is as soon as they get paid, they just take all the money and put it in the savings account and tell everyone they've got no money.
Well, I mean, Jossie's in Dubai, right? He knows all about how to, all about dodgy financial transactions and that sort of thing. He's probably got accounts in Panama and and all sorts.
Sure.
There we go. Sorry, Crystal Palace. Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because of course, this is another reason why I wanted to find out about. Mateta really, because obviously that does have a knock-on effect, and he was playing up top, was he, in the last game? I didn't watch it, if I'm honest, but I don't mind because obviously you've got 3 lovely games over the next sort of 4 or 5, haven't you? And of course, and the other ones are those kind of away games where he could easily score in transition. So, and he's very important to the team now. I don't hate it at all. I mean, naturally, I kind of want Crystal Palace to fail at the moment because West Ham are running out of teams to catch, but. I think it's perfect. Again, it's one of those ones. If you have an extra transfer or 2 over the next few weeks, then it's a good option, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big thing was that he took a penalty, but have they signed Strand Larsen now? Again, completely out of it. So you do expect Strand Larsen to probably take the penalties because he's striker and he's that kind of guy. But that was a pretty amazing penalty to me that Sarr took. It was like it was bordering on insane, the level of confidence. Like I was thinking about it, I was watching him, the way he ran up to the ball, it was kind of like if you could just imagine yourself as someone with no fear, like you could just in some sort of dream state where what would it be like if I just had absolutely zero fear and nerves and just didn't give a shit about anything in life or in the world and absolutely not interested in that. It sent me off on some mad philosophical spin in my head of just like, what levels of not giving a fuck do you have to be to sort of approach a penalty in the way he did? And it was just like slow motion. It was just amazing. It was kind of fascinating. I thought, where the hell has that come from with Sarr? I mean, when you've got that levels of confidence, I was thinking you should probably just be taking the penalties. Anyone who approaches a ball like that on the penalty spot should just be taking the penalties. So who knows? He might even stay on them, but I doubt it. But he could.
Yeah, if I'm honest, the only reason I was a little bit another reason why I wanted to know about the Crystal Palace situation is because there was a situation where I was thinking of Saka to Sarr and then get the third defender, etc. But anyway, we'll talk through our teams in a minute. You'll see that it's not so. But a quick look at the games. I don't think you really need too much to know that Arsenal is the standout there this week. 2.3 projected goals, and I think it's either a season's best or second best, isn't it? Sunderland's numbers there. So Yeah, point
Their, ho-
five
their home and a- their home
goals.
and away thing is weird, isn't it? Like it
It's
really
mad. Yeah.
like the fact that it's reflected. Because I know I said to Spence a few weeks ago, like generally I don't bother looking into that sort of thing, and I don't. And you can see reasons why with a promoted team it's different. You know, you think of like someone like Leeds or something, you do expect it to be quite. But the fact that it's reflected so much in the bookies is crazy. But and then I think Praz said, did you see that stat? Praz said Sunderland are like one of the only like 3 or 4 teams unbeaten at home in Europe, which is bonkers.
Wow,
And yet they are just like nowhere near the same away from home, are they? At the moment. So I mean that's surprised me. 0.59 for Sunderland. For a team that are so big and kind of aggressive and got all these guys at set pieces and long throws and stuff. But yeah, just nothing there away from home. So I don't know.
Yeah, and comfortably the standout clean sheet fixture of this week, and indeed most weeks, to tell you the truth. Although Fulham's numbers there look pretty good, which is quite encouraging.
Fulham.
Not for you, obviously, as a Everton owner.
Yeah, but again, like, it's not great there. But I mean, I always just look at those games and like,
yeah, it could be anything, couldn't it?
Could be anything. 0-0, 1-0. It's Everton play anyone like Fulham, Brighton, any of those sort of mid-table teams can be a 1-0, 1-1, anything. Fulham are a really good team, though. By the way, like I just want to say, like people sort of said, "Oh, United were bad and stuff," and like, "Oh, but beating Fulham is no mean feat." It's, they're just so well organised. It's such so well managed. They're just a really strong team. It's really not easy to beat Fulham. So I know we didn't do it in the best way, and we sort of won in the last minutes, but we beat Fulham. It's absolutely fine. Good result. Good team. Yeah, Man City, Liverpool. I mean, what is going on with City at the moment? It's just so weird, isn't it? I can't really read them and what they are. I mean, I think Semenyo's worth talking about as well, because I do really like Semenyo as a pick. I said it last week, didn't I? In terms of it just sort of feeling repeatable. And then did he score again on the weekend? Just gone? Was that another one? Another
Yeah, he
start?
did. Yeah.
It's just painful. I mean, he looks like he's the one getting on the end of things, and that's the way it looks like. That's the way it's going to be. And then have they got another injury with Doku and stuff? I mean, but again, you are bringing someone in that I hate saying this because it's so early, but you're bringing someone who probably blanks in 31, which is a little bit of a consideration. But I just don't know what to think of City at the moment. It's a shame because we need a title race. And Bernardo Silva injured.
Yeah.
But I just can't see City turning it around. I mean, I don't know with Pep. I always think of Pep as like, did you ever used to watch Dragon Ball Z?
No.
Did you not? Oh, God, what a program that was. Well, anyway, there might be a few viewers who watched it, but I'll just say it quickly then. But there's a guy called Goku who was always like the old. He was like the one. He would always the one who figured out how to level up and become Super Saiyan, like more powerful than everyone else. Every time you wrote him off, and you thought, oh, his son was now the most powerful guy, Gohan or anyone else, Goku would always find a way to go to another level of Super Saiyan that no one else knew existed. And I always think Pep was like Goku, and like, when is he going to find that level of Super Saiyan now this time, or is it the end of him? But it's not looking great.
I was just trying to find out when Dragon Ball's is it Z? Or I suppose it's yeah. Okay, right.
Yeah, I weirdly got into it like a few of my mates. One of my mates got me into it like late teens. It was the most random thing. I not normally into cartoons, but it was really addictive.
No, I went through probably like a lot of people who went to sort of uni in the early 2000s. The kind of cartoons that I did watch were those kind of weird yeah, kind of, yeah, like those kind of late night ones that probably appeal to stoners.
What was the other one? What was the other one with the two American dudes?
Beavis and Butthead.
Beavis and Butthead, of course.
Well, there's that, but even more. C Lab, if anyone remembers that, which is very, very unlikely, but do look it up. It's interesting. And then Space Ghost, which still is so weird, but well worth a kind of watch. I think they were kind of Adult Swim type things. But like, for example, Space Ghost, no, C Lab. For anyway, again, this is a complete diversion. I'll be back to it in just a minute. But they had an episode where someone was crushed under a vending machine where all of the drinks were named after jazz musicians, so like Mango Reinhardt and Cola Train, and that sort of thing, which appeals to me very much anyway.
What a travesty that these things aren't made anymore, man. It's just
Yeah. Well, yeah. This is it. Anyway, we diverge, but we'll come to our teams. What we'll do, we'll sort of transition this through captaincy. I mean, we've had a few questions about Gabriel and Ekitike captaincy and a few alternatives to Bruno, who seems to be the relative popular choice at the moment in time. Any interest in swaying away from Bruno?
Short answer is no. Let me just remind myself of no, because I think for me personally, the only other two that would even be in the conversation is still Haaland and, I hate to say it, but Gabriel. And I don't like that. I've never really captained the defenders in a single game week, but that's how bad all the other picks are at the moment. Or even Rice, actually. Maybe even Rice is too even. That's how bad it is. I'm looking at my team with I can't trust attackers like Bumo. I don't say I can't trust Bumo, but it'd be like it was Enzo. But again, because of the avenues, I can't trust them. It's not enough anymore. They need to have loads of stuff going on. Or be Erling Haaland, who at least has minutes and penalties. So there are some avenues there, but he is kind of an outlier in terms of I expect Haaland to score, probably, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Bruno for me. It's just too good, too many avenues. But I am a little bit worried about that game, by the way. He's always a difficult one, Thomas Frank. It's always just a weird, funny one where, you can sometimes click tactically and it just make it really difficult. And do we know yet, in terms of although Carrick et al. Could be generally great and generally very good at kind of getting goals and getting points over time, is he someone who Frank can look at and figure out a way to kind of cancel us out? That worries me a little bit. I hope not.
Yeah, no, understandable. Let's go to the teams. So, do you want to give the readout for audio?
Yeah, so still hate my team is what it is.
Oh, good.
But yeah, it's it's just a case of be sensible now and just be calm, move on, and just hope that luck changes a bit and some players start to get some points and it's not too bad. And so I've got Raya in goal, I've got Tarkowski away at Fulham, Gabriel, Van Dijk at the moment at home to City, Hall at home to Brentford, so 4-4-2, Ndiaye away at Fulham, Bumo and Bruno Fernandes captain. He's got Saka on the screen. I've already sold him. I forgot that. I didn't realise I was looking at a different screen on my phone. And Thiago and Haaland up front. So I've got the Kra first bench away at Brighton, which I'll probably keep. So obviously I don't really like Kra or Van Dijk. But I just feel like Van Dijk at the moment and Liverpool, obviously Liverpool are in a better place. They're playing well. They can always get cleans and stuff. But Van Dijk's also just up to DEFCON a bit. I don't know if that's a system thing. But it's been okay for me, Van Dijk, last couple of weeks. Got me a clean and then a 4-pointer last week. And a 4-pointer for me at the moment is a absolute mega haul. And a bit of goal threat. That's right. Yeah, he scored, didn't he, and got DEFCON a couple of weeks ago. That's what he got for me. So don't really mind it. And obviously I quite like Van Dijk in the medium to long term. When Liverpool's fixtures turn and sort of Liverpool's approach at the moment and being again in a better place and sort of good defensively. Tarkowski, again, I said last week that I always feel good about him, and Everton played in a different formation, and so when you just think you can't possibly get any more pain, even Tarkowski stops getting DEFCON. So that was, hopefully it was just kind of one off. And I mean, Keane was way ahead. He was on 8 DEFCON, and then he just stayed there. I think they both finished on 8 in the end. Again, being completely objective, Tarkowski, I just still think he's just a really good pick, just because in general. And again, I'm running out of time. I need him to get points now, and then he probably won't. And Fulham away is not a great fixture.
Yeah,
they really can just clean any game, and he is, I hope, still a DEFCON monster. because I just like that DEFCON. And I mean, the amount of big chances he's missed in the last 4 or 5 weeks is another stinker. He had another one. He had one cleared off the line week before last. Pure pain. So I've got Hall, unfortunately, playing against my striker, Brentford. I don't really expect much there now. I mean, Newcastle aren't really doing the cleans, unfortunately. I mean, Hall's pretty good for DEFCON, very good attacking, very good player. Newcastle are good at home. It is what it is. Hope for a bit of luck. So I don't really like anyone there apart from Gabriel. Don't own Timber. And Ndiaye, you just have to be patient with. Hope that you can get something. You do some magic, get a shot off, get a penalty, get some DEFCON. So it's all just a bit of a hope. So done Saka to Rice. Did it last night. I'm almost relieved that that's kind of like, I think, just so obvious. I just don't really need to think about it this week because, I haven't really thought about much. So yeah, there's not much to say really. Any thoughts? I've got no transfers left, so.
Well, I was going to say it's a funny one, this, isn't it? Because you really pretty much couldn't have done anything else, could you? Really, it's exactly.
You can't help. I can see the Schadenfreude in your laugh right now, you bastard. Just.
What do you mean?
I don't know. Like it is funny. Like there's nothing else I can do.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. What I mean, there would have been some people who would have said, "Well, you could take a week off, so to speak, of a third."
Just go away.
No, of a third Arsenal asset, bring in I don't know, Wirtz or Sarr or whoever it is that you like, and then replace one of the defenders. But of course, it's a funny situation with your defenders, aren't they? Because they're all logically quite robust, and there's not really any urgency to replace any of them. I don't know whether you have plans to, but are you kind of seeing that 5-man defense as there until wildcard?
Yeah, I'm just kind of, I'm just going to try and optimize things as much as possible up to 32, and in the sense of just like not be scared of players I don't own. There are players that I want now that I'm scared of, but I've got to look at where the weak points are and just be sensible and calm. So, for example, take Lacroix, for example. I'm not very happy with him. I'm going to bench him this week, but he's got 2 very good fixtures coming up. I'm going to play him. And then after those fixtures, I'm going to sell him for someone like Anderson, someone like that. I don't know. Or a Brentford defender, something like that. I'll have to look at it.
Yeah.
I've got 2.7 million bank. So I've got options in terms of whether to roll next week, whether to get in even an Enzo for the 2 great fixtures, or whether to just sort of save a transfer down the line and get another midfielder in, which means I can at least then I've got an extra player then. So I'm talking for Devaney, so I can finally get to having a better bench and be able to bench defenders.
I'm going to put something on the screen that might wind you up before I go to my team.
Thanks.
So Danny's team is wildcard territory. You can set up beautiful next 6 and work around blank with transfers.
Yeah, I mean, I won't completely rule it out. I'll have a kind of look at it because I think Chelsea's changed a bit. I mean, I'm not really seeing what those opportunities look like right now. So take, for example, yes, you could say someone like a Palace player. So outside of Chelsea, you could say, because I mean, like Liverpool are someone who, if you were wildcarding, there's a lot of players there that you could get that could be a lot of fun that are very good, but they're not good for the next 3. You know what I'm saying? Like yeah, you could wildcarding basically get Chelsea players, and yes, I could have a much better team and get some extra points the next 5-6 weeks. I'm just not convinced that it's enough versus that 32 one yet in terms of. Like I say, there's just not many transfers at all to the end of the season with all these kind of. So when you wildcard in 32, you really need that to take you to 38, and you need it to bang. You need everything to be right in it. So, and not even having that and going now.
I think the other thing, by the way, is that now I mean, I don't know how much you got in the bank now, but you can afford one obviously good upgrade, can't you? So.
Exactly.
You've got players there that people are going to be clamoring to get in soon. I mean, like I'm looking at whether to bring in Virgil again at some point. I'm looking to bring in Thiago at some point. You've already got a Crystal Palace player, so there are 3 players straight away that other people want that you've got. So it's not as, I mean, it might feel shit now, but
exactly. And the other thing is that sort of turn of fixtures is take Chelsea for example. I don't know. I've not thought about wildcard. I've not thought about anything this week. But take Chelsea for example, someone who you'd want to capitalise on. First of all, you're only really talking about some defender like Chalobah, maybe the keeper. Like Palmer, I just think he's a good pick, but it's a lot of money. I wouldn't make that bet because he just doesn't look himself. So it's basically Enzo and maybe João Pedro. You could maybe say João Pedro and Enzo, something like that. But again, like they're all transfers out in their transfers out in 3 weeks. So then you've got no wild card. You've used your transfers to take these guys out. You've made a big bet on basically Chelsea. What else? Not much else right now.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, do follow the bits and pieces in the chat later on. You can see what people think about this wildcard suggestion. But anyway, I'll go on to mine because then we can try and wrap up shortly. So for my lot, as you can tell, the cold remains. But anyway, here we are. So Mad Bob Sanchez in goal, Timber, Gabriel, and Anderson back line. So nice defensive setup this week. Quite pleased with that. Anderson, who obviously is just a machine. Bruno captain, Mbuemo, Harry Wilson, and Saka is there on the visual. Ekitike and Haaland rounding things up with the bench of Dubravka. Michael Keane, who's an interesting one for the next few weeks. Alderete and Mark Gui. Obviously horrible pronunciation, but I can't be asked. So as you can probably tell, 2 free transfers, and I don't actually know what I had in the bank. It doesn't really matter anymore. Transfer already made, so Saka has gone to Rice. Sorry to bore everyone, but that is just the way it is. But part of the reasoning was as well, because
you're going to then take Rice straight back out after the double and use the money to get. No, you've already got money, I suppose, because you want
no. Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. So I now have exact money in the bank for the dud striker Mark Gui to Thiago. So that's like a nice future move at some point or another in a couple of weeks' time. And then, of course, I've got 8 good attackers, really, so I can bench one of Wilson or Anderson any given week up until the blank. The only change I might well make at some point before that blank is whether to move Rice on to a Wirtz or someone like that. But that's the decision for 27, 28, that sort of thing down the line. Probably the only conundrum with this team now then is next week I'm going to have a scenario where Wilson plays City away. Okay, that's we can decide whether that's that bad or not. But the defense starts to look a bit ropey because, of course, if Keane doesn't maintain his spot, the next week, I would have to play one of Alderete in a bad fixture, or Anderson at City. So that would obviously be pretty nasty. So next week's decision will be one on Keane, what to do with that. It's quite a tricky one. So I don't know whether he's likely to keep his spot or not. I know that everyone is not sure. I know there were some reports that he was going to be the bench guy and was brought in for the last fixture, but we don't know that. That's speculation, really. So I don't know what to do with him.
Yeah, what was that? What was that report again? What people are saying that he was meant to be benched?
Yeah, I think it was Bobble or someone, a Twitter account that was relatively well respected, a fan account though, was basically saying that obviously they played 4 centre backs, didn't they, in the last fixture at Brighton, and Keane was meant to be the guy who was on the bench, but Mikalenko got injured, so Keane plays. So watching him carefully, because of course I kind of need him next week, especially. So yeah, quite a tricky one with him. And it's quite hard to plan around players like this where you don't know whether they're a starter now or not in that situation. So he could easily go to, your Senessis, your Hills, your Richards, your Munoz. It depends on what you want to do, but then it interrupts the Thiago transfer if I go to anyone more expensive. So that's got to be bear in mind as well. But yeah, any thoughts?
No.
No. It's one of those, isn't it?
I mean, I thought Keane would keep his place
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not paying. Didn't really pay any attention to Everton fans. I mean, some of them even said they thought Tarkowski would lose his place, and it's just nonsense. So obviously, beware of fans. But maybe it is the case that he. I mean, if that's true, I mean, it might have been the other guy who would have been benched. I don't know. I mean, Keane's been very good for them, and they've had a good partnership. But yeah, I mean, if so, I'd be pretty pleased. But generally, Keane ownership's sort of annoying because he's just a terrifying player. But
Yeah.
I don't think this. Yeah, I mean, you've made all the moves. Your team looks very good again. So is what it is. I mean, Keane's a bit of a scary person to bench. Best finisher at the club.
Yeah, it's just that kind of lingering will he start fear. I mean, this week I don't know what the state of play is with Mykolenko, but if he is back and Keane starts, then obviously he's probably a hold then going forward. But otherwise, is a chance next week I'll have to replace him, and implications on future moves, all that kind of stuff. But we'll talk about it. I mean, I don't know whether we'll have to talk privately about when we can slip in something before Tuesday or not. But yeah, that's the other thing.
And just to say, Marmoush has just scored, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Just one little other point on my team and sort of wildcard discussion is, again, there's always two ways of looking at these things. Because again, I don't think the other opportunities outside of Chelsea, although I don't think this fixture at Chelsea this week, that's another thing. This week, Chelsea, it's not great. I mean, it's a good fixture, but it's Wolves away. It's not fantastic. Wolves have been decent. But the other way to look at it is of course, because of that, because there's no real other great opportunities, there's no great players. I mean, City have got a crap fixture, Liverpool not got a good fixture, etc., etc. A lot of my guys are also opportunities. It's difficult for me to think like optimistically after such bad weeks, but objectively they are opportunities. I mean, like nobody really owns Hall, who's a good player at home to Brentford. Not many people even own Tarkowski, who's a very good pick away at Fulham. And Ndiaye is still actually objectively a pretty good pick on penalties. Nobody really owns him. And like you say, Van Dijk. I mean, Van Dijk's not great this week, but coming up. So, I mean, even Bumo. I don't look at the transfers in, but I don't imagine that he's very highly owned now after a blank. That's one of the things about Bumo as well. I imagine that ownership's pretty low. Don't know. So, you just sometimes have to sit back and look at your picks from fresh and hope that you get lucky. But yeah, we'll finish before we get to 2 hours. I know. I can see the clock. You're on mute. My bad.
Whoa, what an idiot. Eh? Oh, no, I was going to actually finish with a couple of chat questions very quickly. So we can still do it before the time, I reckon. So quick ones just pop up before the end here. Szoboszlai to Enzo or safe transfer?
That on its own, without any other context whatsoever, yeah, I'd probably do that. I like it.
I was going to say if that's not going to impede on anything else, that does sound fairly reasonable. And a nice comment to finish on here from Fred Gould, who's been very kind in the chat this evening. I usually listen to him on podcasts, but to say thank you for the great content. So do what Fred does, I would say. Listen in and like and put nice comments. I like it. Never let anyone tell you to make it shorter. Well, also, bench 2 of Ndiaye, Tiao, Rodon, and Ekatik. I mean, come on. we can't include him on that list.
Who've Leeds got? I'm just trying to look quickly.
Yeah, I don't know, but instantly.
Home to Forest.
Just immediately. I think you bench him anyway, though, don't you? Because he's ultimately the one with the lowest ceiling.
Probably / possibly, but I do like at home to Forest on a Friday night.
Yeah, true.
And, Big Joe could do that. He screwed me as well with that goal early in the season. Definitely, that's quite tough. That definitely not Ekitike, as you say. Rule him out. I think you've got to go for it with Ndiaye, really, probably. So you.
Yeah, we haven't learned our lessons for this season. Bench the defenders.
Yeah, pretty much. That's tough. But yeah, take Ekitike out of there.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we will love you and leave you. But do carry on to put any comments in the chat and like and all that stuff. That's good. And we'll try and have a good weekend. And we
want to try and get to. We need to target, don't we? We want to get to 1,000 subscribers before.
Oh yeah, we're not too far off that now. We're sort of I don't know, 850-ish or something like that now. So yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Please do. All right, cool. I can see that. We're on time now. I'll say goodbye. Have a lovely evening and good luck with your decisions. See you soon.
Thanks, Cheers.